Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show. I'm your host, Dr. Will, and excuse me, we've had a lot of technical difficulties tonight with the email, with the internet, and all that and such, but we are here, and I would like to welcome you, Dr. Mary Hemphill. How are you doing tonight, ma'am?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
You're welcome. Glad to finally get you here and get the show started. I am very excited to do the show. Have been all week to sort of go out with a bang with the BUEDU movement topic of find your own voice for this month, and that's what we'll be talking about. People finding your own voice, and for those people who are tuning in and they're wondering who Dr. Mary is, would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Dr. Mary Hemphill, and I started the Scholar Blogger on January 2015 as a social media project to really sort of capture how mold makers, those people that are going out and creating their own mold in society, can really use inspiration and education as well as motivation to become trendsetters, to become change agents in whatever field that they're in. So I'm really excited again to be here tonight and hope you'll check out the Scholar Blogger.
Y'all didn't expect Super Soul Sunday on Thursday night, did you? Y'all didn't expect that. Uh, so, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So, when we think about finding your own voice, what does finding one's voice mean to you?
I really believe that finding your own voice means finding your own truth. I believe that when you go through life and you go through this journey, whether it's with all the ups and downs and the challenges and the celebrations that come along with that, your truth is your journey. So when you find your voice and you find that thing that you want to communicate with the masses, it has a purpose because it's unique to you. And that's what makes finding your voice so amazing, because it's so true and it's so real and genuine to you that when you share it with other people, you really have a humanizing factor to it and people can really relate to it.
Mm, okay. All right. So, why is it important for educators to find their own voices?
I believe it's critical for educators to find their own voice because students' lives depend on it. One thing that really encaptured me about my PhD program is that it was an interdisciplinary program, and I was able to learn from people who worked with IBM all the way to the health industry, nonprofit organizations, and it was a great time in my life because I realized at that moment I'm creating students who are going to be problem solvers, who are going to be solution seekers in various fields. I am a teacher at heart, but as educators, we're not creating every student to become educators. We're becoming into a time in the 21st century where we don't even know what types of jobs that are going to be out there by the time some of our kindergarten students who are the class of 2028, by the time they get into the workforce, there's going to be jobs that are created that we can't even dream of right now. And so because our students depend on their role models, depend on educators and the people that they spend most of their school day and 180 days out of the school year with, it's so important that we know our truth. It's so important that we communicate that truth, because you never know when a student is going to hear you say something that's going to be that defining moment in their life.
Excellent, excellent. Now, we all know folks that we admire or aspire to be like. How does one keep their own voice and not become swayed or susceptible to following someone else's voice?
I think it's critical that we keep in mind that emulation is the greatest form of flattery, and we all have heroes. We all have people that we love and that we admire and that we follow, and I don't believe that we should stop doing that. I think the best leaders always look to those people who are in the field, who are prospering, who are doing great things, and you want to take those good things and you want to sort of add them to your unique persona, the way that you communicate, but take those interactions and take those observations affirmations and make them your own, make them unique. And when you do that, you're taking the best of the best, and then you're taking your truth, and instead of becoming a carbon copy of someone else, you're becoming your own person, and you're telling your own story. And no one's going to have the same perspective on your life that you're going to have. So that's why it's so critical that you stay true to who you are, but also pay homage to those people that you may emulate or that you may honor, family members that may have passed on. Pay tribute to them, but add your own truth and add your own perspective to it.
Okay, so going with that, how did you discover your own voice?
I believe there's a time when, as an adult, you start to think about the things that you've lived, the opportunities that you've had, the experiences that you've had, and the people that you've had the opportunity to come in contact with. And there's an excellent trending topic going on in social media right now called #DearMe, advice to a younger self. And we've all had moments where we say, my 21-year-old self is not the same as my 31-year-old self. And if I could go back and give myself that piece of advice, what would it be? And I believe that right now, when you discover your own voice, you start to figure out that every experience adds a different layer and a different context to things that are going on. As a teacher, I had a much different perspective than I had as an assistant principal, and even a different perspective that I have now as principals. I think when you find your own voice, you find your voice in context. You find your voice in the classroom, you find your voice in the teacher's lounge, you find your voice in the community. And based on the context in which you're in, all of your experiences, every person you've met, all the opportunities that you have, those add contextual layers to your voice. And your voice is going to change. But again, I always go back to keeping it true to who you are and keeping it true to your purpose. And if you know your purpose, and if you know your truth, any context is going to be able to come out on the other side and have a success story on the other end of it.
Okay, so how has discovering your voice impacted you as an educator?
Coming from a Title I school and coming from an area where opportunities, whether they're human, resources, physical resources, or financial resources, were not necessarily in abundance, I never let that be my excuse. And so I had an amazing family unit, my mom, my dad, and my sister, who were always around me saying that if you set your mind to it and if you keep your faith, there's nothing that you can't accomplish. And so when I was able to go back to the same third grade classroom where my students sat and where I had sat previously, it was amazing for me to say, let me use my voice now to tell you about the things I've seen and the people that I've met and the opportunities that I've had, because you have those same opportunities. Depending on what it is that, when you meet a child, you meet every experience that they've had at that time. And I have conversations with educators all the time and talking about culturally relevant pedagogy, knowing every child doesn't come from a two-parent home. Every child doesn't have a bedtime story read to them at night. And understanding that and coming from a middle-class family that did have those opportunities, it helps me shift my perspective. But I'm able to use my voice so that even if I ask a question with my truth, I'm helping the educators seek more information, kind of figure out where they are in terms of how they approach students in the classroom, and then also make them open to other educators. We don't teach in silos anymore, so how can we learn from each other? And if I ask the right question, because I never claim to know everything, but if I ask the right question, let's go on a journey together and find our voice so that we can find answers for students.
Okay, now sparked by Sheryl Sandberg, women have been creating lean-in circles to help support each other. When one begins the process of sort of discovering themselves, is that a solo journey, or do you think a group, or should they join a group? Should they embark on this with a cohort of people they trust?
I believe there has to be a balance. I believe that there's definitely something to be said about having that solo journey. You know, you read a lot of quotes and we read a lot of self-help books, and they're not called group help books for a reason, because you know yourself better than anyone else does. You know your inner workings, you know your thoughts and your dreams, and you also know your actions when no one else is around. But at the same time, you have to have that group balance, and you have to surround yourself with a cohort of people that are like-minded, because again, when you're with yourself all the time, you are not as objective as, you know, a group of people, friends, critical friends that are going to give you feedback that's going to make you better. But I do believe at the end of the day, if you're not comfortable with yourself, if you're not comfortable with your truth, then that's an issue, and you do have to set time aside to reflect. You have to set time aside to meditate with yourself, but you also need to set time away and have a group of critical friends that you go to with your celebrations, with your challenges, and make sure that there's an even balance between self and group, because that's critical to development.
Okay, so what would you say was the process, or do you have a few? I don't want to say. I know I put easy in the question, but this is not necessarily an easy process. But what steps would you say one should go about when trying to discover their unique self?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's not easy. And I believe that the first step is coming to grips with that. The fact that this process of knowing yourself and finding your voice is not an easy process. But when you get on the other side of every problem that you face, whether it's personal or professional, when you get on the other side of that, to know, hey, I did it, I came through it, and I'm a better and I'm a stronger person because of it. I think that's the first step, is just really honing in on the fact that it's not easy. I think the second step, again, like I said, is to take time to reflect on your day. At the end of the day, I try to take a couple moments just to reflect on, how did I interact with people today? How did I attack problems? How did I react to a group or to my organization when there were problems? And then lastly, where am I personally? Am I being a good sister? Am I being a good daughter? Am I being a good friend, or whatever roles that you play? Because if you do that daily, you're going to find that there are little things that you can do to not only make your voice stronger, but also to make your reactions to how you're living this life and how you're experiencing this life, and making it better. And then third, and this is one of the most important steps for me, is to share your gift. I believe every educator has a gift, and whether it's, you know, PLCs, or whether it's curriculum, or whether it's data, whatever your gift is, and some teachers have the gift of gab, but whatever it is, share it. Because when you share it, when you give it to someone, because it is a gift, when you give it to someone, it makes you a stronger, more well-rounded person, and you bless somebody in the process. You never know if there's a child in that classroom that needs what your gift is. And if you give it to someone else, then you're blessing a whole lot of students at the same time.
See, she's doing it again. She's doing it again. She's doing it again. All right, all right. Don't pass out the collection plate and keep on.
There we go.
So I'm going to throw a curve. Well, it may not be a curveball, but it's not a question I gave you before. But I'm going to throw this out there.
Okay.
What can you tell my viewers about the mold makers? Where did that idea come from, and sort of what is your plan for it?
Absolutely. Mold makers came about through various conversations that I had with family and with friends. What happened at a very early age when I was in third grade is I decided I did want to go into education. I wanted to teach. And as I got into the classroom and as I began interacting with teachers and with students, I realized I wanted to make a difference on a greater level. I really wanted to be able to be a mentor and really affect the lives of more students. And so that meant going into administration. And I was an assistant principal at the age of 26 and a principal at the age of 29. And a lot of times, as we know, we have 4 different generations that are in schools right now. And it's a wonderful time because we do have the Google generation, the millennials, the baby boomers. We have all these generations that are learning and growing and how to teach teachers. But one thing that a lot of people said, from my family and friends to people that I met at conferences were, wow, you're really young to be a principal. You're really young to lead an organization and lead a school. And that just seemed to be the common thing. And in my mind, I'm thinking I want to make a difference for students, and students are changing, but this whole idea of education is not changing. And so I started to think about this idea that society has put on what a principal is and what a principal looks like. And if you go to my YouTube channel and watch one of my first videos, I have a clip from Matilda, the Trunchbull, because when you think about a principal, you do think about a middle-aged individual who, is at the end of their career and really wants to go out into retirement in this role of principal. So I wanted to bring a vibrancy into education. I wanted to bring innovation into education and really challenge my teachers and challenge the people that I work with to think outside the crayon box. And so the idea of mold makers got started. I am so blessed to have gone through school and met so many amazing people that are mold makers, that are making their own mold in society. And I believe that this whole idea of being a trendsetter and being a change agent and redefining whatever it is that you're called to do, this whole mold making process is really going to be what shifts the world scene and shifts us, as Americans in the future, because this whole idea of 20th century, we talk about it like it's coming. We're 15 years into the 21st century. So we are the generation that's going to define, the success of our nation. So mold making is a passion of mine, and I hope to do that through inspiring other mold makers, being able to talk about education, not just formal education, but even logging onto YouTube, logging onto Twitter, which is 24-hour professional development, 140 characters, or being able to go on Instagram and find other mold makers. That's what's going to move us along as a generation and make us stronger. And if we connect, if we collaborate, just think about the think tanks that we can create and the collaborations like this one that can happen.
Awesome. She go maybe break out the Martin Luther King fan. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So I got another one to throw out there to you.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but in talking about sort of finding your own voice, you have this moniker, the scholar vlogger, and you have chosen vlogging as a way to share your voice with people. How did that happen, and how does that fit into what you define as your voice?
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you asked me that question, because I believe when you're a mold maker, you do have to take leaps of faith, and you have to believe in your brand, and you have to believe in your product, because this whole idea of vlogging for me as a professional and as an educator was very, very new. I had been on YouTube multiple times because they call it YouTube University, and every time I wanted to know how to twist my hair or do a great cat eye, I would go on YouTube and try to figure it out. But what I noticed was that there was a huge shortage of how to do your dissertation and make it phenomenal, how to become a scholar in your field. There's a lack there when it comes to YouTube. And in terms of being in public education, it was a huge leap of faith, because when you are an educator, you represent your community, you represent your school, you represent your district. So I needed to make sure that the product I was putting out was something that everyone in the community would be proud of and would be able to share with their students. So this whole idea of being a vlogger and finding my voice took a lot of faith, because you do that first video, and as soon as you click upload, you're thinking to yourself, is this message going to touch someone? And I promised myself that if my message created a ripple with one person, and that one person went and shared it with another person, then it was well worth it. Even when I doubted myself, and I believe sometimes as mold makers, when you doubt yourself, you just need that extra push or that extra jump. My mom and my family is very supportive of me, so when I told them about this idea about going on YouTube, we immediately started looking for cameras. And I researched it. I knew the best camera that I needed in order to do it. And we went to 3 different stores. It was Christmas time, couldn't find the camera. My cafeteria lady, who is absolutely wonderful, loves children, came in my office that Monday, and she was so excited to show me the pictures of her daughter's Christmas formal. And she had the camera around her neck that I needed. And she said to me, I want you to look at these pictures, but it's going to take a long time because there's all these buttons and I don't know which one to press. I can't stand this camera. I hate it. And I said, is that a Nikon, P33, da-da-da. I gave her all the numbers. And she was like, yeah, my husband just got it for me. I can't stand it. I said, I've been looking for that camera. And she said, well, if you want it, it's yours. And she took the memory card out of it, laid it on my desk, and she said, Merry Christmas, and she walked out. And mold makers, when it lines up for you, and you know that without a shadow of a doubt that this is your purpose, this is what you need to share with the world, that's your voice. And that is, everything lining up so that the faith that you have for it, the purpose that you have for it, and your truth are going to align, and everything that you need to share with the world is going to happen. So that's how the Scholar Vlogger got started, and with a push from the Most High, we got it done.
All right. This is obviously, this is great. This is giving me that high to take me on back to that NFL draft. That's on tonight.
There you
Hopefully,
go.
the Steelers fan, I'm hoping they get what they need. So now before we go, and because I want to go a little deeper into this. Once someone has discovered their voice, where does social media come into play? Because you have, different educators, and they're on Twitter or they're on Google Plus or LinkedIn or Reddit or just a plethora of platforms out there. How does social media sort of fit their voice and them actually aligning everything you've been talking about tonight to say to the world, this is who I am and I own who I am?
Right. And I love how you said, how do you own who you are? Like I said earlier, your brand or your message is sort of your promise. Teachers a lot of times begin the school year with a social contract or a conversation with students about the rules for the classroom. And when you begin to tackle social media, you have to decide, okay, what is my priority? What is my message? And what do I want to be consistent with in terms of the pictures that I post on Instagram, the tweets that I send out on Twitter, or the persona and the message that I'm communicating on Facebook or Tumblr or Snapchat or whatever it is. When you find your purpose and you start to go back and look at your story and look at your journey, there's a tagline in there. There's a consistent message that if you talk to a person who knew you in 3rd grade, if you talk to your spouse or significant other, your best friend, or if you talk to your pastor or a boss, there's a consistency. There should be a consistency with what you stand for. And I think with people who are looking to get into social media, because it is such a vast, ever-changing market, if you want to start there, start with having those conversations and tell people what it is that you want to communicate, and your message will come out of that. Your tagline or your brand will start to come out of those conversations. Start with just one thing. The beauty of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram is that it is always changing. What is hot tonight is not going to be hot in the morning. And so consistency is key. And the beauty of that is social media has opened up doors and windows and doggy holes and everything for the exchange of this face-to-face conversation. You can be halfway around the world, and I can connect with you because we have a common interest, or you're seeking something that I can give you in terms of my purpose. So whereas it was very difficult for me to connect with someone in the United Kingdom about mold making and something that they may be doing in education in their classrooms in London, it is now fair game for me to communicate a message about something I'm doing here in North Carolina, and then open that door so I can connect with someone in the UK. And that's the beauty of social media, is that it is ever changing, it is ever present, but you have to be consistent in your voice. You have to be consistent in your truth, because what people don't want is to subscribe to someone who on Monday is giving you all these motivational things about inspiring yourself and going out there and taking on the world, and then by Friday you're feeling just as drug out and drugged down as they are. They're looking for you as a source of inspiration. So be consistent and promise yourself when you go into it, when you go into the social media market, that you're going to stay on a consistent schedule and have a consistent message, because that's your promise to your subscribers or your followers.
All right, y'all. Now that's how you end finding your own voice for being you, EDU movement. That's how you end it right here. This is all right. This is all right. You know, I had a long day at work, and this is all right. I'm feeling the needing the coffee. I'm pepping up right now.
There you go.
This is
That's
all
what
right.
it's about.
Thank you, Dr. Mary, for being such an awesome guest on the show, and hopefully you'll come back in the future.
Absolutely,
Uh,
I'd love to.
awesome. So, people, yes, as always, this will be on my blog. You'll be able to read some stuff about Dr. Mary and be able to find out how you can contact her on different platforms. And again, thank you for watching the Dr. Will Show, and we'll see you again on another episode.
Thank you so much.
All right.